What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This week we are back on the 1972 C10. Just when you thought all the fabrication was done, it's not. The cab is still off the frame, so it's a great time for me to jump into the cab, and we're gonna be cutting out that entire dash because we got a lot of sweet components to put into it. Most of the time, most people, including us, usually just use what's here. You know, they'll throw a Dakota Digital dash in here. It's like a direct fit. We already cut out this section here where your radio and your AC controls go. We're thinking, hey, why not go ham on the interior on this thing? So my plan of action right now is gonna be to cut out this whole section out of our dash. And we're gonna start over. So over here on the table, I have laid out our interior items. So we're going with the Holley Pro Dash. I think this is like 13.1 inches touchscreen. This thing is awesome. We also have a touchscreen Pioneer head unit with Apple or Android Play, so you could have, you know, navigation, control your radio, all kinds of stuff. These things are completely programmable. You could use this touchscreen to roll windows down, turn lighting on, all kinds of stuff. So we also, of course, have a full Restomod AC kit. This is a Viper unit. It's gonna be plenty big for our truck. We have our bulkhead here that I'm gonna find a nice little spot to tuck away. And we're going with some cool rectangular vents from Restomod and our controls. So the plan on this dash is to give it like a modern vibe. We'll see. And then in the center here, for this guy, I was thinking about kind of having this bumped out and then putting a vent on the left and right side of it, kind of angled at the driver and passenger. And then we'll have another AC vent on this side and one down yonder. Got a bunch of stuff to mount up into this cab, including our Restomod AC. So that's where we're at. Let's get to cutting. Once I take my cutoff wheel to the stock dash, there's no turning back. Wish me luck. All right, I got a bunch of cardboard cut up and taped up here to our dash. Now our layout is starting to kind of come together. This is obviously a very rough template to give not only myself an idea, give you guys an idea, but also get it approved by the owner. You know, not every truck that we build here is a shop truck. So, you know, you also have to deal with customers. So this is kind of what I've come up with. It's definitely got a more modern vibe to it. So we got our bump out here in our middle section, which will house for our Pioneer head unit. Now the top section here is, I'm trying to make it so it's kind of modular, so we could give panels to Lee to wrap with leather. So this whole top piece, I'm gonna probably end up bolting it in up top. This whole section right here will be separate, and this could be wrapped in leather. This is also acts like a little sun visor for our dash, for our Holley dash. And then we have a bottom section which will also be modular. So this whole piece could come out, just gives it a dimension. Then we'll have our spots for our vents. All in all, I think it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm liking the form and the shapes and the angles. The next thing I just gotta decide is how far back am I gonna cut out on the dash. As you kind of see from the side here, it pokes out a lot further than the stock dash. So I could possibly inset it a little bit. You see kind of here on the bottom where our old dash kind of slanted up towards the bottom side of it. So possibly I could push this whole section back, and then I won't have this problem. Now I'm gonna go ahead and pull this thing out, and then we can actually start converting our cardboard into metal. Now I got some 16 gauge back support to not only give me something to attach my components to, also to stiffen up our dash. So now it's basically one solid unit. I have my center console part, my center section, my little bump out, as you will. It's laid out here all in the center. So what I'll be able to do on this is weld some tabs on the back and weld a bolt. So we'll be able to basically stick this right through the holes and fasten it from the back side. So this whole piece can be removed, and if we want to wrap it in a leather or something, we could do so. Then I got my 2 panels that I'm going to cut. One on this side, which will be for our gauge. Then I could go ahead and cut in my recess for my gauge cluster, my steering wheel opening, and then we'll be able to weld that side in. Right now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start getting our AC blower in, so we know if we could add some kind of compartment on this side. Probably if we do, it'll be very tiny, you know, maybe just a couple inches deep. Got our blower installed. See, there's not a whole lot of room back here. Right now we got about 5 inches from the inside of our dash to our blower. Now you also got to keep in mind we're gonna have these flex hoses that are gonna be coming out. Possibly we could kind of turn up and then go over towards the driver's side in the middle. But you know, once you do that, you're talking maybe 3.5 inches of a box in here. So I'll run that by him and see if he wants to roll with it. But at least now we got our blower installed. Let's keep it moving, brother. Now that we got the basic structure of our dash, this is gonna be our pan for our Holley dash. So I got all my pieces cut already. They're slightly angled on the sides so we can pitch our dash up, our gauge up towards the driver. So this is my backing plate, which is gonna be the plate which will mount our 6 screws into our dash, our gauge cluster. So we also gotta make some provisions for our terminal here. These are the USB ports. We gotta make provisions for all this stuff. This is our GPS inlet. That might just be like a breather or a speaker. We also have something here on the side. So we gotta cut all that stuff out on our back plate. We also gotta lay out our 6 mounting points. They do give you a template. We'll get these drilled, and then I'll be able to weld this all together. Today, before we go any further with our dash and our gauge, this cutout, we're gonna get our steering wheel mocked up. We're gonna try to drop this down a little bit lower so we have a little bit more room, not only at the top, but at the bottom between our steering column and the lip of our recess. With doing that, we're also going to be adding our support that's gonna get welded back up in here. So I have that sitting here. This is a new part from LMC, which I also have to modify a little bit. This won't fit in anymore with the way I have my firewall. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this, and then we're gonna get it laid out up inside of here, get some tacks on it. I'm gonna drill my hole for my steering column through the firewall, and then we're gonna go ahead and mock up a column. We have our trusty old mock-up column here that I've had for 3 years, and we've pretty much used this column to mock up every build we've had here. As you can see, this thing has taken a beating. So I modified my brace, it fits up there nice. The other part of the whole package here is our brake assembly bracket, which we're also going to reuse. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and take this panel back off so I could kind of get in there a little bit. I'm going to have to modify this as well. Probably take about 1/4 inch off this back end and re-weld on a flange. So I'm going to get this off, kind of get it all mocked up and see what I got to do to get it up in there. Alrighty, now we have our column installed. And as you see, I do have a little room on the top that I could bring my gauge down. By bringing this down, then I'm gonna be able to add a bigger lip, kind of like a little visor, if you will, like a little sun visor. Got these sides in, now we're gonna start working on the center section. This all kind of still worked out. The only thing that we're adding is this top sunshade, or lip, if you will. So our goal here is to make this all into one piece, the top section as well as the center section. That way we can send this off with our bench sheet and get it wrapped in that same leather. So these sections will remain in and be painted or something, and then this section could be wrapped in leather with some nice stitching. So I'm gonna pass these templates off to the Plasma Man, Dave. Here you go, Dave.
Oh, thanks.
Passing the torch.
Okay, so we got our centerpiece of our dash made up and bent up. Next we have this stereo base. So the display is going to go somewhere in this area. Obviously turn the other way, and there'll be a hole in the front and it'll be popping through. So what we're going to be doing is making a pan similar to the pan we made for the dash display that will be the circumference. We'll made up with the edge here, and then it will be deep enough that we'll have a piece that comes across the top and catches 1, 2, 3, 4 mounting spots. Also, we're gonna have it stick out of here a little bit. There's a little seam right here between black and the silver. So we're gonna use that as a reference point for where this is gonna pop out of the center. We're gonna go ahead, measure up, get our dimensions for a pan, and then I'm also gonna tack together this pan so it's in a fixed position as we go ahead and build everything else out.
While Dave is welding up that mount for our display, I want to remind you guys about that Salvage Savage merch. The link is in the description, so click it, go on over there, check out all these hats, our t-shirts. We even got some sweet hoodies, because you know about that time of year where you're gonna be cuddling up next to your loved ones, and if you ain't got a loved one, grab yourself a hoodie. So go over there, buy some merch, support the content, let's go. Dave's got our center bump out section bent up and tack welded together, and this is kind of what we're looking at here. It's one thing to make stuff out of cardboard, and then it's a whole other thing to do it out of metal. So we are kind of shy on a little pie cut over here. This side's not as bad. Then we're gonna have our little lid. This also has to get modified too. So at this point, what we're gonna do is get this fixed onto our dash panel. Dave's gonna weld a flat piece across here. That's also gonna help us mount our stereo. And then he's gonna add 2 little ears off the top side. So I'm gonna go ahead and drill some holes in this bracing. And then once he gets his tabs on here, we'll hold this back up here, we'll transfer our holes, and we're gonna weld some 1/4 bolts onto this piece, and then we'll be able to get our nuts from the back side. So this piece will be completely removable, so we could install our radio, all that kind of stuff on here, get it wrapped in leather, and then we'll be able to stick it on when it's all said and done.
All right, so we have our dash centerpiece laid out here in tape. And I use tape to run from our mark of our overhang here up to here, kind of like running a string line, but in tape. And then same thing back over to this corner. So this gives us a nice even outline. We know that our overhang's even here, there, and in the center, and our tape will give us all the other contours we need. So now to translate this to a drawing, I'm just gonna take a bunch of measurements as I go down, and translate that into paper and see if it works out.
All right, so we got our top piece clecoed in. Now we still have plenty of room for our head unit, even with our 3/4 turn down. And so I also, while Dave was doing that, I templated this bottom section again. I came off 3/4 just to give it a more like flow through the center section, the bump out. This looks kind of good because now if we put any kind of switchers or controls in here, it just kind of separates it from our head unit. I'm liking it, man. I've never seen a C10 with any kind of dash like this, that's for sure. Do a regular old shrinker, Dave.
Shrinking it up. All right, so now we kind of got crowns on either side and it sort of flattens in the middle. Seems like the middle probably needs to come up a little bit.
Let's test her out.
The other way seems to work better.
All right, so now you got to bring this section back down.
So we're on to the next section of our dash. This template piece goes across the center here, creates some shape. So this is it laid all flat out. And what's nice about this is that there's a nice flat edge. So measuring this and drawing it's going to be a lot easier than a piece that has curves on each side.
All right, we got our bottom little shelf mounted with some clecos. And now we're gonna go ahead and get our steering column hole cut back in here. Then we probably could go ahead and start thinking what we're gonna do with our gauge and cutting in our gauge cluster. Then we can cut in our head unit and start figuring out how we're gonna finally tack all this stuff up. All right, so here we got our Holley pan for our Pro Dash. Dave went ahead and welded a 1/2 inch flange all the way around. Just to give it another little element of a detail, I'm gonna add another flange going back towards our dash panel to give it like a little bump out, almost like a little bezel. But first I'm gonna go ahead and weld on my 4 1/4-20 studs in our corners here. That way we can get it mounted from the back. All right, we got our mount for our Pro Dash pretty much done. Does need some body work and some paint, but more or less we're good to go. I'm excited to see what this thing's gonna look like in. So now that that's done, and David's got the lower section out, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this panel, make my cut, and then we're gonna be able to test fit our gauge and
our next big step with our dash is making a piece that goes, attaches to this lip here and dives back towards the dash. So right now you can see there's this gap opening and this whole piece is going to be wrapped in leather. So we want to have something for it to wrap around and continue backwards so it just doesn't have a hard edge right here. So I'm going to template out this entire piece. See, it starts thinner, gets wider to this point, then gets thinner again as we go into our center console that holds our media unit, and then does the same thing going on passenger side.
All right, we finally got our dash fabricated. Everything is installed with our fasteners. The only thing we still got to do is figure out how we're gonna either weld in these two panels or if we're gonna make them removable as well. At this point, I say we just make them removable. Maybe we'll add a nice fastener up here in the corners. This bottom piece gets through bolted through that, so we don't have to really worry about that section. But we did buy this pretty cool crater maker thing from Hammer Fab, I believe. So it might do like just 4 across the top, 2 on each side, just to give it a little detail, a little extra, little zest. We got our top piece on, it's curved. We got our underside in. We definitely have some body work that we're probably gonna have to do to this. I'm gonna meet with Lee from E3 to kind of go over everything, because we're gonna be wrapping a bunch of this in leather. I also got some samples coming in of some wood grain and some like brushed aluminum. So this section, these two panels, as well as the front, the little bump out, I'm thinking about doing like a nice wood grain across it, or possibly like a brushed aluminum. And then this piece up here will get wrapped. This one will get wrapped. I think it'll look pretty nice. We still have to do our bottom center console, waiting on our shifter to come in so we can kind of lay that out, and some cup holders. But for now, we're gonna go ahead and throw in our Pioneer touchscreen head unit. That fits like a champ, boom. Might actually make a bezel for this as well to kind of match this, but I don't know, we might do that out of like a nice piece of billet. Then we got our Holley dash, of course. Again, fits like a glove. But now you guys are starting to kind of see this thing come together. I think it looks awesome. It would be pretty cool if we did some kind of screen on this side too to balance it out, but I don't know what kind of screen you need, but we'll see. We still kind of have some space inside here for a little glove compartment if we want to go down that route. Just cut a nice little axis here, nice little bloop bloop. Got our AC vents in. Still trying to figure out where we're gonna do our AC controls, if we're gonna do them here or down here. We also got a push button start we're gonna be installing. But on a whole, I think it came out awesome. Super happy with it. It's definitely a one-of-a-kind dash. Hope you guys like it. But for now, that's a wrap for the episode. So next episode, we're gonna be doing body work. We're gonna be doing maybe some sound deadener. We're probably gonna be doing the center console. We're gonna be doing some body work to our firewall, getting all this painted, getting it ready to put back on our chassis. So until then, we'll see you guys the next time. Peace!